What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is part of a series where I focus on a specific composer and give you guys my top 10 favorite scores from said composer. Don't touch composers in the past such as Alexander Desplat, Hans Zimmer, Cliff Martinez, and many more. You guys can check out those composers and those many more in my playlist down below. But guys, you clicked on this video, so you know it. This time around, I'm giving you my top 10 favorite Thomas Newman film scores of all time. Now, keep in mind, I'm filming this video on July 19th of 2025, so as of the filming of this video, these are my thoughts. This could change in the future, depending on what scores he gives us in the future, but I'm going to give you guys some honorable mentions, and I'm going to go from 10 to 1, with number 1 being my favorite score from Thomas Newman. So I'm looking forward to seeing what yours is going to look like, because at the end of the day, film is subjective, not objective, meaning yours is going to be different from mine. And that's what's great about film. So I'm looking forward to seeing what yours is going to look like. And yeah, guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. Kicking things off with a couple honorable mentions. The first one we have is Jarhead, a film that really doesn't get talked about that much, but I gotta say the film itself is quite underappreciated these days, and especially the score. The score is one of Thomas Newman's best. It's so good. I think it's easily one of the highlights of the film, along with of course Roger Deakins' cinematography. But yeah, the score just matches the imagery perfectly, and yeah, that's why I have it as an honorable mention for Jarhead. Next up we have Cinderella Man. Cinderella Man's score is phenomenal. It really is. I absolutely love it. Like, it is so inspirational sounding, and it works with the imagery on display. But more importantly, it also does really well with the dramatic beats of the film. You really do feel as if the score is a representation of the lead character's like mindset, and I think it's a really good score. Doesn't get talked about too much in terms of the film. Oftentimes the film gets talked about for the performances, the editing, but the score is something that is really important with this film. And yeah, I love the score. I've listened to it from time to time, and it's really good on its own and works phenomenally well in the context of the film as well. So Cinderella Man, it's an honorable mention. Next honorable mention, we have Revolutionary Road. A film that when it first came out was critically acclaimed and audiences seemed to appreciate it. But again, this is one of those films that just doesn't get talked about that much, which is a shame, because I watched it for the first time in early 2016, and immediately one of the things that stood out was the score, because it's very somber. It also just does a really good job of matching the tone of the film. Yes, the performances are, similar to like Cinderella Man and Jarhead. The performances are what are often talked about the most with those films. But I do think that the score by Thomas Newman in all those films, especially in this one, should get talked about more, because it's so important in the context of the film with what it, is getting audiences to feel. So I think Thomas Newman's score here is great. I was listening to this score earlier today. It's a really good score. And yeah, if you've been sleeping on the film, highly recommend the film. But at the very least, would recommend you listen to the score on its own, because it's really good. And yeah, that's why I have Revolutionary Road as an honorable mention. And now, guys, we're going to get into the top 10. So kicking things off with my number 10, we have 1917. 1917 is a good film. I quite like it. I've seen it a handful of times. And the score is really good, especially one of the final tracks. I'll put it up here. You guys, if you've seen the film, you know the track. It is an incredible track. The building tension is just so good. And also, I just love the instruments that were used in this film. I also just think that, similar to all these other films that I mentioned, Thomas Newman does such a great job of really getting to the headspace of the characters through the instruments that he uses. And in this film especially, you can really feel that. So I like this film a lot, but especially the score. I think it's so good. And it did get an Oscar nomination, a very well-deserved one. I thought it was actually going to win, but Joker ended up, winning for original score. So I remember it was between those two that was going to win. But yeah, Thomas Newman's score for this, really good. And that's why I have it as my number 10. Next up, my number 9. This is a film that was originally supposed to be the final film from Steven Soderbergh, but he came out of retirement, of course. My number 9, we have Side Effects. So Side Effects, the score is just so original sounding. Like, I honest to God don't think I've ever heard a score like this one. It is so good, and yet at the same time, it's reminiscent of Hitchcockian films in terms of the atmosphere that it forebode. And I also think what this film does in regards to the twists and turns are really good, but how they're executed it's not even just the editing, it's not even just the, story beats as to what really makes it work. It's the fact that the score matches all of those seamlessly. So I really do think that if you take the score away from, this film, it wouldn't be quite as impactful. And it just goes to show why Thomas Newman is one of the best composers, because he delivers a really, really underappreciated score for a film that I feel like is under the radar for a lot of people. But if you like thrillers, I highly recommend you check out this film. If you're not a big fan of thrillers, at least listen to the score for this film, because it's quite good. And yeah, that's why I have it as my number 9. Next up, my number 8. This is going to be an interesting one to talk about. My number 8 is Bridge of Spies. So Steven Spielberg, he's a director that most of the time, like 98% of the time, works with John Williams, the composer. But for this film, I think John Williams, I forget what project it was that he was working on, but he was working on something else. So Steven Spielberg called up Thomas Newman. And the thing about this score that I think is interesting is that it's clear that he's trying to reminisce John Williams', themes. But at the same time, he still makes it his own. And I think that it's that blending of two composers' work that works really, really well with what Spielberg's going for. It's a score that really doesn't get talked about too much, but I think it's really, really good. It's inspirational sounding, it's patriotic sounding, but it's also very intense. It just really matches the white-knuckle thrills of this film. So, again, the film itself, I can't say it's underappreciated because it did get a lot of Oscar attention when it first came out. But I do think that the score is something that many people should talk about more, because it really is kind of incredible with what Thomas Newman was able to do. Appease Spielberg by sounding kind of like John Williams, but at the same time making his own still. And I think that's something that it's a balancing act, and I think it works really well with Bridge of Spies. So Thomas Newman's score, really, really good, and that's why I have it as my number 8. Next up, my number 7, it's going to be kind of wild to say this, but my number 7 is one that I don't own yet on 4K. I've been putting it off for a little bit, which is a shame because it's one of my favorite animated films, but you probably guessed it. My number 7 is Finding Nemo, a film that is amazing. One of the best animated films of all time. And honestly, the score, I would argue, is one of the first things in my childhood as to what really kind of stood out. Like, the score for that film, I remember when I first watched it as a little kid, was something that just stood out. I'm like, it sounds really, really good. Like, it's dramatic when need be, it's very emotional when need be, but it's also very, inspirational when need be. So it's a balancing act, and yet it does a really, really good job. And that's something I can say as a kid, a teenager, and an adult, that the score has worked throughout my entire life. And I think that honestly, I appreciate it more and more. The more I watch the film, the more I listen to it. But it's a great score. Again, it doesn't get talked about enough, I feel like, anymore, but it's a really, really good score, and that's why I have it as my number 7. Next up, my number 6, a film that doesn't get talked about anymore, despite it getting 3 Oscar nominations when it first came out in 2006. My number 6 is Little Children. You might first be asking why I have 2 copies. It's because what happened was I got this at the record store, and when I opened up the DVD, it ended up having not only 2 DVDs of Little Children, but it also had 2 not slip covers, but cover art of the film. So I had an extra DVD case, so I was just like, all right, I'm just going to put it in another one. So I have 2 in case one breaks down. But anyways, this film is really, really good. It's a very challenging film. It's very dark. It's very somber. There is some dark comedy for sure. The performances are great. But the thing that stands out immediately, literally within the first minute of the film, is the score by Thomas Newman. It's really, really good. It's clearly evoking one of his earlier films, American Beauty, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it still stands out on its own. I think that it's one of those scores that it's so, so good. Like, I've listened to it multiple times on its own, and when you listen to it, you can't help but remind yourself of like certain things that happen in the film because of the score. And it just goes to show how important the score of this film is. And again, that's thanks to Thomas Newman. So this film doesn't get talked about enough anymore, unfortunately. I mean, as you see, it's on DVD. It's not even on Blu-ray. Hopefully that will change in the future. But Thomas Newman's score, so, so good. And yeah, that's why I have Little Children. It's my number 6. Now we get into the nitty-gritty. Top 5, guys. So my number 5, we have The Green Mile, a score that quite literally makes me cry. Every time I watch this film, there's a certain track at the end that just has me bawling my eyes out. I think the score is so, so good. I mean, this is Thomas Newman, like one of the scores that I feel like is what really made him a big name. It's a great film. I love the film itself, but the score is just so, so good. The amount of dramatic depth that Thomas Newman provided because of the instruments that he used, it works so well with the imagery. I think this score is so, so good. I don't listen to it as much as the other scores, just simply because as great as the score is, that one track at the end, it always gets me to break down, so I try not to, but it's still a phenomenal score. So, highly recommend the film. It's a great film. It's a classic for a reason, but the score, so good by Thomas Newman. That's why it was my number 5. Next up, my number 4, this is one of the most unique sounding action film scores I've ever heard in my entire life. My number 4, we have Skyfall. Skyfall is a phenomenal film. I think it's one of those action films that it's able to blend blockbuster sensibilities with art house sensibilities seamlessly. But more importantly, I really appreciate how Thomas Newman was just able to do his thing. He was able to make a score that isn't necessarily trying to be nostalgic for past James Bond films. It's 100% original with what he's doing. It sounds unique and it works really well with the imagery on display. But more importantly, it's just incredible how different tracks match the people. So like you'll hear a track and it's like, okay, this is this individual's theme. That's this individual's theme. And I really like that. I love it when a composer does that. So I think that this film works on many different levels in terms of the score. And also, again, the score, I listen to it quite often. It's an incredible score. There are a lot of intense moments, but I do also think the emotional beats work quite well. And as I've established, I think it's because Thomas Newman just really does a good job with the instruments. So I love Skyfall. And the score, again, it's pretty phenomenal. So that was my number 4. Next up, my number 3, I was listening to this score earlier today, and it's amazing. My number 3 is Road to Perdition. A film that I'll never forget. I was watching it on my cracked iPod screen in 2014 in the back of the classroom, and I'll never forget the first 2 minutes of the film. I immediately knew that I was going to like this film because of Thomas Newman's score just swelling into the sound mix. I was like, holy cow, this is amazing sounding. And it is. It really is an incredible score. And honestly, I think that Thomas Newman should have won Best Original Score for this score because it's on another level with what it's able to do. I mentioned how with Skyfall, different characters have different themes, and that's something that, he did years past in Road to Perdition, and I think that that's something that should be talked about because of just the underrated nature of this score. Like, nobody really talks about this score. Nobody really talks about this film anymore, and I think it's a shame because the film should be talked about more, and the score itself is amazing. Again, even if you don't like the film, even if you watch the film and you say to me, I don't like it, Chad, well, that's fine. I'm sure you'll at the very least, appreciate the score. I guarantee it, in fact. And yeah, that's why I gotta say, Road to Perdition, it's my number 3. Next up, my number 2, this is an all-time classic, and for a long time, it was actually my number 1 favorite film of all time. My number 2, we have The Shawshank Redemption. So yeah, The Shawshank Redemption, I mean, holy cow. I think that The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile are 2 films that are companion pieces in a lot of ways. They're both directed by Frank Darabont, but they're also both scored by, of course, Thomas Newman. And I gotta say, as much as I love the score by Green Mile, I do think Shawshank Redemption beats it by a little bit. I mean, there are so many iconic scenes, and they're iconic not even just because of the performances, not even just because of the cinematography by Roger Deakins, but because of the score. The scene in the rain, again, not going to spoil anything, but the scene in the rain, the big reveal of, a certain poster, stuff like this. It's so iconic because of the sound mix revolving around the score by Thomas Newman. So again, great film. Phenomenal. I love it. If you've been sleeping on this film for some reason, what are you doing? Check out this film. It's amazing. And my number 1, I feel like it's kind of interesting now that I'm thinking about it. My number 1 and 2 are 2 films that were my number 1 favorite film of all time at one point. My number 1 is American Beauty. So quite recently, Mulholland Drive overtook American Beauty as my number 1 favorite film of all time. But keep in mind, American Beauty is still my number 2 favorite film of all time. I think that this film is amazing. And I'm not going to lie, that there are often times on Fridays where I'll just, put in the score and listen to the score on its own because this score is one of my favorites, honestly, of all time. I think it's incredible. I think the depth of this film lies not only just with the writing, the performances, and cinematography, and the editing, but the score. It works so well. Like, the whole film is about how, people aren't truly who they are on the surface and how there's a lot more to them underneath. And the score matches that seamlessly. I mean, the score on its surface, it seems kind of, like zany, like, very upbeat and everything. But there are a lot of darker moments, a lot more emotional moments, especially as the film goes on. And I think it does a good job of balancing the two and just really showcasing and matching, honestly, the themes that the film is depicting. So I think that the score is honestly really, really deep. And I think it's one of the best scores I've ever heard. And it's why it was my number one in terms of Thomas Newman's film score. So, yeah. But yeah, guys, that's my top 10 favorite Thomas Newman film scores. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Or if you haven't seen too many Thomas Newman film scores, or films, I should say, watch more of them. But for now, give me your top 5 or top 3, whatever the case is. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you haven't done so already, be sure to follow me on Letterboxd, Patreon, subscription, notification bell, and I will catch you guys later.